Welcome to Harbourside Chats with the Governor for 2026. These are discussions that the central bank convenes with important stakeholders discussing the economy, the financial sector, and things that matter for the Bahamian public. Hello, I'm Governor John Rolle, and welcome to our first edition of Harbourside Chats with the Governor for 2026. These are discussions that the central bank convenes with important stakeholders discussing the economy, the financial sector, and things that matter for the Bahamian public. And today we have a very diverse panel. We are discussing the issue of financial inclusion on the backdrop of some of the recent work that the central bank has been doing to scope and introduce a basic banking account facility for individuals. Our guests today are very seasoned in their respective field. We have, first of all, Mr. Matthew Aubry. He is the Executive Director for the Organization for Responsible Governance, so he's very active in the advocacy space. We have Ms. Nina Maynard from the private sector. She's the Human Resources Director for the Myers Restaurant Group of Companies. She'll tell us a bit more about who the Myers Group is very soon. And we have Mr. Roger Archer, a commercial banker. He's the Managing Director for Scotiabank in the Bahamas. Let's start with you, Mr. Archer. Help the viewers to understand, why commercial banks are important in our economy, and what is it about your job that you find fulfilling?
Thanks for the question, Governor. Commercial banking is at the heart of economic activity. We are the ones that are facilitating trade. We are bringing ultimate borrowers and ultimate lenders together, acting as an intermediary. And we are facilitating growth, supporting government, and ensuring that the economy does well every year. What really gives me, pride in the work that I do is seeing small businesses being able to grow. Like I can think of a company where, we lent them funds to grow their vehicle business. And in doing so, they were able to expand within a 10-year period. And that when I saw that business person 10 years later, he said to me, you gave me my very first loan. And now look at where my business is. The business has expanded. I have, a lot more employees. We're servicing multiple markets, and we're expanding across the region. That's something that gives me pride, because now we know that we have contributed to the growth of a business that is hiring persons within the economy and growing beyond our markets. Banking is very much about people, and it's not only about our clients, but it's also about our team members as well, helping to build capacity within the economy, building leaders for the next generation who are going to be able to contribute to the growth within the Bahamas. So very proud about the work that we do, and excited to continue to do that work to drive the success of the Bahamas.
Thank you. And Mr. Aubry, you are a strong advocate for transparency, accountability, and good governance. Tell us, how your experience to date has prepared you for the work that you do.
Interesting question, thank you. So as the Executive Director for the Organization for Responsible Governance, the first thing I think that we build our work on is that there is this mutual social contract between government and citizens, that neither can be successful without the other, right? And that includes the private sector, and that includes our communities wide and far, not just in Nassau, but across the Family Islands. And that really at the heart of it then talks to this topic of inclusion that we're discussing today. That's where my background brings me. I come from a very varied background, but came from a space where didn't have any resources, very poor, not coming into it, single mom, all of those things. So when we do our work, we're driven to not just represent those that are engaged enough to have those conversations and be involved in developing policies and paying attention and reading the newspapers. In fact, we're actually much more concerned on those who typically don't get brought into the conversation. All those folks that historically tend to be marginalized, and in our communities, we have to recognize that a lot of that is our family island communities or our over-the-hill communities, those who have the least, because in truth, they're affected the most by often the policies or the investments or the developments that are made in government. Very often they're presented with a solution to a problem that is being perceived around them. And that leads to us developing some really great ideas and institutions, but not necessarily seeing the benefit of those developments, institutions, or policies on day-to-day lives of the majority of Bahamians.
So I like that inclusivity theme, and I just want to put a plug in here for the central bank, because even though we talk about financial inclusion, being included financially is also the inroad to being included more generally in society. So that's why, the financial side of it is important. Now, Ms. Maynard, you, in your role as Director of Human Resources with the Myers Group, you bring a wealth of experience and knowledge around talent management and organizational leadership. With your background, tell us a bit, first of all, what is the Myers Group, and what are the challenging and satisfying aspects of your role in the Myers Group?
So the Myers Group is a conglomerate that operates KFC, Burger King, Anthony's, and Quiznos at this time. The Myers Group has been around for almost 60 years. So we're kind of a pillar in the community. And our thrust right now is to make sure that anybody that comes to work with us or who works with us understands that our company is not just a job, it's a career opportunity for growth and development as well. So we have a real great push when it comes to that. And I will also say that it's the challenging part for me sometimes is trying to get people to realize that they have the potential and being able to show up a better version of themselves and always open to learning and embracing that opportunity to learn. Our company's motto, or one of our company's mottos from our CEO, is that we want to be the hardest place to come and work at, and also the hardest place to leave, because of the kind of culture, the kind of environment that we create within our company, where everybody who works for us would have their needs met, more than just their financial needs, but also their needs to grow and develop as people.
So let me ask you first, Mr. Aubry, how important is it for individuals and small businesses, to have reliable, affordable access to services for everyday transactions?
I think you pointed out in our first exchange, I think it's critical. If you don't have a means to participate in a system, you're going to get left behind, or you're not going to be able to take advantage of that system. And accessing monies on a reliable way, being able to use that is a really fundamental part for people to see themselves as part of a collective environment. I do want to point out maybe something that I think may be obvious, but it's also important to be stated, is that accessibility is not just based on having the availability. A lot of it also has to do with people's belief in the system and their belief about themselves as a part of that system. People feel that they don't see their interests represented, and so they have to figure their own way out. And so when that leads to the process, people are moving outside of systems. We've seen large portions of our economy being informal. People who are doing a little side gig because they believe that's the best way they can keep themselves floating. They're baking bread, they're cutting hair, they're doing all these types of things. But they're also not contributing into any of the tax bases that we see. And more importantly, in a space where we live at risk of things like hurricanes, they don't have a footprint, so that if something gets demolished, and we saw this in Abaco and Grand Bahama, it's almost impossible to replace that. You don't have infrastructure, you don't have data, but you also don't have the ability to tap into loans or grants that could help to restore that. So when we talk about inclusion, when we talk about creating access into a banking system, which I really do commend the central bank for pushing forward this accessible banking line, it really is a start for folks to be able to then build on a foundation that can progressively lead them into being able to be more resilient or thriving.
Yeah, but the issue of trust. Is it that I have low confidence and therefore I stay away from financial institutions, or is it that I don't have access to the kind of employment activity that would motivate me to establish relationships with the financial institution?
So trust is a tough concept, right? Because once it's broken, and for many different reasons, trust is built on consistency. It's built on believing that that things are treating me fairly and consistently the way it's treating others. And so I may be given an opportunity to have access, but if I don't believe, and it's not just the banking community, right, or that experience, it's in our entire system. If I don't see that things are being fairly enforced and I don't have a clear sense of how the game is being played, I will either step back and wait until I see an avenue that I can finally trust, or I will find another way around. And we saw that through some of the informal banking that was happening in the communities that didn't have great access to banking, through the gaming systems and things, which is not
just to defend the gaming sector. This is not something that they embrace, and I know that whenever they can, they do undertake the due diligence and,
right,
and they monitor to ensure that these are one-to-one relationships. So, but we understand the issue.
But it was a creative person's solution to a system that they didn't see met their particular needs. So when we're designing our systems, they have to be in partnership, in co-creation with those communities that need to be served, so that they can build the ownership that is already built on that needs to be a part of accessing a system that has been designed to work well.
And I think this is a good lead into you, Ms. Maya. You have you're a large employer with over 800 persons, right? And as you mentioned, there's at least 19 restaurants across several brands. So help us to understand the profile of your employees. Is having a bank account a necessity for them to get a job?
So having a way to get funds sent to you is a necessity, because we do all of our banking and all of our payroll through electronic funds transfer. We don't give cash and we don't pay by check. So everybody gets paid through bank transfer. And again, that really created some challenges for us, especially in recent years, because most of the younger persons that come to work for us don't have bank accounts. And getting access to bank accounts because of the KYC requirement has been really difficult for some of them, which is why we seeked you guys out a couple summers ago, so that when we did our summer student hire especially, we were able to give them some way of being able to get paid and be able to save their money. And so us being able to give them the access to the digital wallet through Sand Dollar really, really, really helped. And even now, as we hire new people on board who do not have bank accounts or do not have access to getting bank accounts, we use the Sand Dollar app, and they are able to get that banking.
I'm glad you mentioned the Sand Dollar, because it really comes at the end point of some of the other simplified due diligence reform that the central bank did, really to make certain that those who are at just the basic transaction level can go in and open up a bank account or a digital wallet account and satisfy the due diligence requirements that are just as robust as would be the case in any country around the world, and to the international standards. In your experience, are you getting feedback from individuals as well about the hesitancy to open up accounts?
I would say that while they may be hesitant, they realize that it's a necessity, because they cannot get employment with us and most other businesses now without having a bank account or some way of getting money transferred to them electronically. And so they realize it's a necessity. COVID made us realize that we were operating in bedrock, really like the Flintstone times, because we couldn't function digitally during COVID. And so when COVID was finished, we undertook the really mammoth task of making sure that our organization would be able to function really no matter what kind of hit that we get economically, to be able to function as normal. And so we've digitalized almost every aspect of our business. Our payroll system was one of the first things that we had to digitalize. And because we have 4 different companies, we had to be able to accommodate so many different ways to pay and so many different aspects of payroll. So now our payroll system is completely digitalized. Our team gets their schedule through digital means, all of that. And what that means is that we're now able to give them the opportunity to have a real history of their bank, of their employment and their funds, to be able to access even from a commercial banking system. Things like loans and that kind of thing, because they can show their history. They can show that in this year they would have made $30,000 or $40,000, or that they've been employed for 20 years and this has been their history. And so we've been able to help in that way as well. So this has really helped us quite a bit, and it's helped us to include not just the persons who are younger, but also to assist the persons who are older, who before that did not have the means to be able to do that as well.
Why is the KYC, or the due diligence process, important? And how does that experience look, say, for a cashier versus someone else who you might think to have a bit more of a risk around their persona?
So when I think about the KYC process, there are 3 things I think are really important. One is that we're protecting the reputation of our jurisdiction, we're protecting our clients, and we're protecting the bank. Since I've been in my role, what I've seen is that we've simplified the approach that we can take with our clients based on the risk that they're bringing to the bank. And it's a lot easier for us to onboard clients who are doing simple transactions now. Even as we were talking before, one of the things that we are looking to do is with our existing commercial clients, our corporate clients, to the extent they have employees who may not have what I consider the traditional documents, working with those employers to find ways to onboard those clients so that everyone can have access to banking. And that's a project that our retail team has started this year, working with our commercial banking team. So that's something that we want to do because we want to be part of financial inclusion, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in a risk-based, with a risk-based approach. The reality is that there are going to be those larger clients who bring increased risk to our business that we want to take some time to sit with, and we want to understand their business so that we can make sure that we understand that risk and that we're in a position to manage that risk. But those are sophisticated businesses, and they understand those processes. But for smaller clients doing simple transactions, we want to make it as easy as possible.
The 2 follow-up questions I have. One is that there's often a complaint in the public that even within the same financial institution, the experience varies depending on who they encounter. And so the question would be, how do you manage the consistency at which your rules and standards are applied? And second, when you talk about the risk approach, customers will typically get into an argument or a disagreement sometimes as to whether they are as risky as you make them out to be. How do you manage that interaction?
We've digitized the account opening for Bahamians. And so the central bank has given us guidelines on how we can go about onboarding those clients. And our digitized and electronic onboarding more or less follows the central bank's guidelines. Nevertheless, you'll always have persons that don't necessarily neatly fall within the guidelines, and then those are referred to the branch. And when the branch is engaged, we want to, as best as possible, facilitate opening what I consider simple, basic accounts. And our team basically engages our risk managers to the extent the challenge is outside of the parameters that the central bank would have designed for us at the beginning. And that's, I think, how we try to get the consistency across the business, because what we're doing is we're leveraging our risk managers to help to give us guidance, but also challenging them to ensure that we're able to onboard clients that don't present a significant risk to the bank. But ideally, what has allowed us really to standardize is the digitizing of the onboarding process, because we're following the central bank's guidelines and only outliers go to the branch.
Do you ever do any assessment, or do you have any sense of what the operational experience, efficiency, cost, or otherwise looks like for businesses that have transitioned more to the digital space, whether it's for payroll or for payment? Because lots of us can relate to when the KFCs and the others may have started to accept credit and debit cards, and you're telling us as well that you've transitioned in terms of payroll and the like. What did you see different?
So for us, what it meant is it made our operation more efficient. So again, we took on the mammoth task of making sure that we improved our operation through technology. And so by doing that, now I'm sure you're aware that we have even a loyalty program with an app that if you purchase with us, you can gain points, and you can also redeem them. And so we needed to make sure that our operations were able to handle that along with the other digitalization. And I can honestly tell you that now that we're even more, we've partnered with Scotiabank to make sure that our credit card and debit card platform is so well integrated into our POS systems that when somebody comes and they're able to redeem their points or gain them, they can also tap their cards, or they can move faster. So that means that it's easier. We're about to launch in a few months kiosks as you walk into our restaurant, so you don't necessarily have to walk up to the cashier. You can put in your order yourself. And in addition to that, we're also looking into online ordering and delivery and all of those things to make sure that we make it easier for our customers, but also easier for our team. Because the more efficient that we can operate, the more efficient our team can work smarter rather than harder. And so our focus really is to make sure that our organizational excellence moves in a way where we are operating smarter rather than harder. And I can honestly tell you that for us, technology has opened many, many doors, or made our operation way more efficient, but also for us to be able to gather the kind of data that we need to show the improvements and show where our challenges are, so we can actually pinpoint which day part in each one of our businesses is challenged. What about that day part is challenged? We can pinpoint if this particular revenue center is the problem, or if we need to improve this, and we get real-time answers right away. So I think that technology for us has been an eye-opener.
So there are definitely fees involved with all of these digital payments acceptances, as opposed to when you accepted cash. And I know that the business community is not very happy about the merchant fee structure, and there's probably some justification for that in the Bahamas. But can you recall at all any of your experience in terms of how that fee structure, in terms of increasing your reliance on digital transactions, how that contrasted with any of the other expenses that you dealt with when you were less digital?
So when we're less digital, we pay for more paper, right? We also paid for more people to work, because more people to do the same job. And now, because we are improving our operation through technology, that means that we're making sure that our team grows and develops, so now one person can learn and do more than one thing. So for us, we have a cost-benefit analysis, right? So yes, it does cost more in fees in terms of being more digital and having more digital access. But in terms of how our operation is working efficiently and effectively, but also how much it's meeting the needs of our team in terms of their growth and development as well. So the return on the investment for us is about equal.
So I want to ask you, Mr. Aubry, and from what policymakers might be able to do, policymakers and regulators, what should our role be in terms of trying to speed up and incentivize the modernization process for payments and access?
So my first answer, which is probably not the one that anybody wants to hear, is I don't know that speed is the best answer. Adoption of technology is based on a mix of functionality, accessibility, and also to some degree aspirational, right? I mean, we all have smartphones, and if you look on probably anybody's smartphones, we all have just 24 apps. We use 5 of them, and those 5 are the ones that they work well, but they also are the thing we want. And so I think coming back to that, it comes back to, from a policymaker standpoint or a regulator standpoint, finding that bridge of how to understand that formula at the user level and what the user not only experiences, but what the user ultimate goal is, an objective. And too often, I think we create things. I mean, Bahamas, we have brilliant people coming up with world-beating solutions. Sand has gotten so much international recognition, but I would contend that there's still folks to whom this whole solution was originally created who had difficulty accessing because of long distances in our family islands or a move of commercial banking centers out of some of those islands, that they still are struggling with adoption. They're still struggling to understand or use this technology. And I don't think it's a lack of comfort with technology, because everybody's Grammy has WhatsApp and is using access where they see it as functional. So it's about starting the process of consultation in a more two-way dialogue, making the time to help our communities to not only be acknowledged that they are struggling with these challenges, but that they also have their lived experience, which can help to contribute to the solutions. So I think as we develop these ideas that have great merit and great potential solutions for us, that we also have to figure out how we marry that development of those early discussions to be able to build that ownership and trust, so that we're not creating a solution and then having to invest a lot of money to try and convince folks that that solution is there.
Well,
Businesses might have an inherent obvious benefit because there was an expenditure that was there, but community level citizens may not see that cost benefit analysis at the same level yet.
Well, I think that's why balance is important, and I think it's important for all stakeholders to be balanced in their input. The Bahamas does not have the luxury of time, right? And when I listen to the Myers Group and how they're trying to expand the reach of their services, and we're talking about financial inclusion, I am concerned now that there's going to be a subset of your customers who can't use the kiosk or who cannot order online because they lack the interface.
No, we still take
we
cash.
need to make certain that they get there.
No, we still take cash.
But can I pay cash if I am 3 blocks away from the order point? That's going to be the challenge. The trust issue. Is the trust issue one of perception, or is it in reality? If it is perception, then we address the perception. Why are people not comfortable? Is it cybersecurity? Is it data security? Then I think you can confront those. And so being proactive, I think, in terms of how you confront the trust issue. Otherwise, I sometimes fear that we will get people to buy into the idea that there's a trust issue when they are unable even to articulate what's their mistrust.
So trust is, as I said, a very slippery
Exactly,
concept, right?
yes.
But perception, we know, in many instances is reality, and we see that. We do a lot of work in, say, the anti-corruption space, and we used to talk about and ask people when, if they felt like there was corruption at a certain level, and before COVID and Dorian, before we got to digitalizing a lot of our government services, which removes the potential of people actually dealing with a person who would ask for a bribe, the level of people's perception stayed the same. Mm-hmm. And the reality that can't be true, right? Because we've taken away some of the opportunity. But that lived experience of seeing things happening that happened inconsistently, perceiving that things are fair, it takes a while to rebuild that. Yeah. So consistency in our approach in the way that we ask folks and what we ask them about and how we process it is going to be part of how we get to where you're talking about. It can't just, it's not going to happen on one event. It's that we're adopting a scenario to acknowledge that trust is an issue, but also not let that be what we sit on that's a preventative.
And that's why I think that the stakeholders have to be balanced in how they're approaching it and getting the citizens to grapple with the issues. And so there is a constructive side to that. But I want to thank all of you for being on the podcast, the show today. It's certainly been a very, very rewarding and insightful conversation. I'm very glad that we had such a cross-sectional perspective. Business, the Organization for Responsible Governance from the governance side, and then we had the commercial banker in the hot seat. So thank you all very much. It has been a pleasure having you on Harbourside Chats today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me say to our audience, thank you as always for joining us. Remember, Harbourside Chats with the Governor, we partner with ZNES television, so you can catch these replay on ZNES as well as on our social media channel. You can also send us email at harboursidechats@centralbankbahamas.com if you have any suggestions on topics that we might cover in future shows. Again, it's a pleasure having you, and we look forward to many more of these stimulating and informative dialogues.